Christmas isn't just tinsel and a long Doctor Who. It's a festival with traditions stretching back across hundreds of years and almost as many Christmases.
It's hard to imagine now, but when Christmas first began, Christ wasn't even in it. Psycho Danny Dyer hasn't always been in EastEnders, even though he feels like part of the furniture, especially when he's trying to act.
Centuries before Jesus arrived, late December was already a time of celebration for the pagans, who existed so long ago there aren't any YouTubes of them. So we've had to make do with this picture. To find out what the pagans were, I spoke to an expert.
Were there pagans before there were humans?
No, you've got to be a human to do anything. Pagans are just people who lived in Europe before Christianity arrived.
How difficult was it for the pagans to get about on all fours?
They didn't travel on all fours, they travelled upright like we do.
The pagans worshipped nature, just like Chris Packham. And their calendar revolved around two big annual events, also like Chris Packham. One of these events took place in late December and was known as the winter solstices.
What was the winter solstice?
It's the winter solstice.
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 You got it. It's that magical time, midwinter and midsummer, when the sun seems to stand still. To the eye, it appears to stop moving along the horizon.
Well, you're not meant to look at it, are you? Because it hurts your eyes.
You can look at it when it rises and you can look at it when it sets. Then you can. And
No, you can't. It makes you go blind.
You can. Trust me,
you can't. That's probably why you've got glasses.
As well as blinding themselves, the pagans celebrated the solstice by cutting down holly and ivy and dragging it into their homes, along with a giant Yule log which they'd set fire to. It sounds rubbish, but with no app store to speak of, killing trees and plants was as good as entertainment got, even at Christmas.
Why do you think it's important that Jesus was born? Would it have been more interesting if he'd have been built like R2-D2?
It would have been more interesting, but the important thing is that he can identify with us, and he was a real human being.
It makes him more sort of relatable.
Yes, very much so.
But then if he's meant to be like an ordinary bloke and he wanted to come across as an ordinary bloke, how come he had all like angels and kings at his stable on his birthday?
Well, that was a bit weird, wasn't it? Although, of course, I would want to say that angels are around all the time. You don't necessarily see them there and then, but sometimes you catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of your eye, or maybe you smell a nice fragrance.
Vanilla?
Maybe.
How many three wise men were there?
Who knows?
Oh.
And I think only one of the Gospels refers to there being three. But it's just three is a good number, isn't it? It looks good.
So, but there could have actually been 15 three wise men.
Quite possibly, yes.
Thanks to Jesus' popularity, Christmas was celebrated for hundreds of years. Celebrated by people who were buried long ago, but are still alive in the form of drawings of themselves, some dating back as far as the Middle Ages.
In the Middle Ages, did they know it was the Middle Ages, or did they just think, this is now? You know, how did they know that they were halfway through time?
They thought this is now, and they thought they were incredibly advanced. This is the greatest moment that society would reach to.
It'd be amazing, wouldn't it, to get a Tudor back that we could resuscitate,
yes,
cryogenically or something.
Yes.
And then show him what had happened since he'd died. It would blow his mind, wouldn't it?
It would. The internet.
The internet. Google.
Cars. Aeroplanes.
Fitbit watches.
Fitbits.
One thing our time traveller would recognise is the tradition of getting drunk and acting up at Christmas, which back then was known as wassailing.
So what was wassailing? Is that like a sort of bit like bants now?
What's bants?
Bants, it's like when someone's acting like a prick.
Oh, really? What it is basically a group of people, usually a group of men, go around from house to house with a big bowl of drink, and they knock on your door and they sing songs, and the idea is that you're going to swap a drink from their bowl for a gift.
So it was a bit like trick-or-treating then, was it?
It was very like trick-or-treating.
I mean, what sort of costumes would they do? Because they were already sort of covered in shit, weren't they, with like slugs on them and mud and everything.
They didn't usually wear costumes, but it was also a way of creating community cohesion, going from house to house. It was something that was supposed to be fun as well. So that's really the very early beginnings of going from house to house singing carols.
Because the history lady said that, we've now cut to this. Some boys singing carols in a church. On earth.
Okay, I get it, yeah, thanks. How do you get the music into the words? Like, how do you attach the music to the words in your throat?
Well, you tend to attach the words to the music instead.
You attach the words to the music as it's coming up through your throat.
Yeah.
So does it feel like, where does the music come from? Does it feel like it's coming from your stomach, like you're going to be sick, but it's like nice sick?
Kind of, I guess.
Meanwhile, back in the past, by the time the Tudor era arrived and the music all sounded like what you're hearing now, Christmas had become an excuse for gastronomic indulgence.
Tudor feasts were huge and often included roast goose or swan or peacock, basically a big bird roasted whole. That might sound traumatic, but in the days before television, they didn't know big birds have a person inside.
To find out more about Tudor eating habits, I spoke to food expert Jay Rayner.
So what sort of things did Tudor people eat at Christmas? They ate things like peacock, didn't they? What goes with peacock? What kind of gravy?
There is evidence that they ate, very exotic things, but only that would have been the very, very richest people.
I suppose the best thing about them as well is that tail, and that's not going to taste of anything, is it?
No, that's purely for display. Yeah.
A Tudor Christmas, then, they'd have peacock, like you say.
No, I think like you said.
The royals had peacock.
I don't know how much peacock was eaten in Tudor days, I'll be honest.
How did that affect their bowels, what comes out of their back holes?
I don't know. I suppose if they were eating too much, it would have caused certain bowel issues.
I suppose meat, lots of meats.
Lots of meat
compacted together.
Can compact, yes.
And make sort of big hard stools.
It would have been uncomfortable, I imagine, but I'm only guessing.
But see, that would have been the first bit that I'd gone to if I was a food expert.
Because in 1647, Cromwell banned Christmas. According to the Puritans, Christians shouldn't celebrate Christmas because it's not in the Bible. Instead, they should be inside a church, which isn't in the Bible, reading the Bible, which isn't in the Bible. The ban on Christmas continued until after Cromwell's death, but by 1660, we'd found a new king up a tree. The new king even had a head, although it looked a bit like it belonged to Boise of Only Fools and Horses. And now the monarch was back and the Puritans had buggered off. Christmas was free to become more festive and less religious.
So where did Santa come from? If you think in the North Pole, that's because your parents lied to you.
He actually stepped out of the pages of history.
Where did Father Christmas come from?
Well, Father Christmas comes from St. Nicholas, and he is a 4th century Greek saint and bishop, and he was very renowned for giving presents to the poor, and particularly he gave presents to these 3 girls. If he hadn't given them the money, they would have had to go off and be prostitutes.
So why was he knocking about with these prostitutes?
I don't think he knew them very well. It's just that they...
Well enough to give them gifts.
Give them money. I think he just wanted to save them from the horrors of... I think because basically...
They all say that, don't they?
They do.
How come shops have Father Christmases, but they don't have Jesuses? Is Jesuses the right term? Is it Jesus or...
I think we'd say figures of Jesus.
Figures of Jesus.
I think that Father Christmas himself would probably have preferred there to be figures of Jesus, because in fact there is a medieval story. St. Nicholas got in a punch-up about whether or not God or Jesus was greater and was thrown into prison. So he was obviously very exercised about the purity of religion.
It's all coming out, isn't it? Because I didn't know that he used to hang about with prostitutes or get into fights. Now I'm feeling less happy with him coming down my chimney.
Despite being the stuff of nightmares, Santa is the world's most popular home intruder. Probably because, unlike other home intruders, he doesn't leave a turd on your living room carpet, but a pile of gifts.
Santa has a list of good and bad children. The good children will get lots of presents. And so it turns out, well, the bad children. In fact, the only ones who won't get very much are the poor children. That's because Santa judges a child's goodness based largely on parental income.
The sense of magical wonder on a child's face as they open their presents, which allegedly makes Christmas worthwhile, can last for up to 10 seconds.
That's why, for many, Christmas is synonymous with little ones.
Adults lose the ability to see Father Christmas, so if you want to know more about him, you have to ask small adults, which are known as children.
Hello, who are you?
I'm Archie, who are you?
Philomena. Have you ever met Father Christmas?
I have.
Where did you meet him?
I met him next to Westfield.
And what was he doing there? Was he shopping or something?
I'm not quite sure if Father Christmas is rich.
I don't think he is.
How did he get all the presents in, lots of times?
I think he just shoplifts.
Okay.
Do you think Father Christmas has ever met Batman?
In my opinion, Batman's not real. In my opinion, Batman's not real. It's just a man called Bruce.
So you don't think they've met?
I think Superman and Father Christmas have met.
Do you think that Father Christmas will still be allowed in the country after Brexit?
Yeah, he'll still be allowed in the country.
Will he?
Yeah, because the police don't know when he's in the air.
Could you talk me through what makes a perfect Christmas dinner?
Once you've got the right people around the table, you need a light starter. If you give people too much to, which is
Not
really
prawn cocktails.
well, I don't know. A good prawn cocktail's a lovely thing.
I don't like prawns.
Do you know?
No, they're bottom feeders.
Okay, I tend to do platters of charcuterie, salami and ham and maybe some pickles and things for people to pick at.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have that? No? Okay. And then you come to the main event. So maybe a 3-bird roast or a roast goose, bread sauce gravy.
I don't understand bread sauce.
It's a great way of making a really savoury sauce.
Bread and sauce are two completely different things, aren't they?
Well, they are, but you can grind the bread down and then cook it in milk to make a really good sauce.
It just looks like sort of cheers.
Eating aside, the other popular form of Christmas indulgence is gift buying from shops.
Critics say Christmas is too commercialised and that the Bible has been replaced by the Argos catalogue just because it's got a better selection of hair straighteners.
Recently, Christmas shopping has started to look less like a supermarket sweep Christmas special and more like a civil war with carrier bags. No wonder more people than ever stay indoors shopping on the computer. So is Christmas all just about buying stuff these days?
How much money gets made at Christmas?
Altogether, I'm sure we spend hundreds of millions of pounds at Christmas.
And how big a cut does the church get?
The church doesn't get anything.
They don't get anything?
No.
The supermarket near me's got about 30 tills. How many tills does Amazon have? They must have loads.
They don't have any tills.
What?
They have a computer.
One computer?
Yeah, because no one goes there, do they? They just do
I know,
it.
but I thought they'd still have to ring it through.
No, the computer does all that.
So there's one man at a computer just going?
No, I don't think there's a man. No, it just goes automatically. You do that. You're the till.
But the most Christmassy film of all time is also the most exciting. Die Hard. People think Die Hard is a gripping and exciting action film just because, as you can see, it is. But it's also a heartwarming Yuletide story full of the magic of Christmas. It's got everything. Singing. A man up a chimney, warming yourself in front of a roaring fire. While the snow flutters down outside. Brotherly love.
Hey, look, I love you. So do a lot of the other guys.
Cranberry sauce. Excessive sherry drinking.
God, that man looks really pissed.
Season's greetings.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Your dad conked out in a chair, wearing a Santa hat and his Christmas jumper. Angels majestically soaring through the air. And of course, Jesus Christ Powell.
Jesus Christ, Powell!
Today, the true meaning of Christmas is a mystery, wrapped up in sherry and Monopoly and monkey nuts. But at least at this time of togetherness and warmth, we can all agree what the true spirit of Christmas is. Baileys. Merry Christmas and a very new year.